Hi, it's Kim from the Shamrock Quilt Studio, and today we're talking about a new project we're starting. Those are always exciting days in the studio, so grab something to drink. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about all this stuff. See you soon. And welcome back to the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Well, hi and welcome back. Today we're talking about a new project we started. In a previous video, I gave you a little rundown about shopping and fabrics, and we talked about all these fabrics. So we will go over them really quickly. And if you want a little more detail in that, you might want to go back and check the video about my love-hate relationship with fabric shopping. But we're here today and we're ready to start. We are going to be working on a pattern from the Barnstar Sampler book. We covered this also in that video. And we're not doing the whole sampler. Today we're working on this block down here. It's a 24 by 24 block. I think in the other video I talked about it being 36 by 36, but I was wrong. It's 24 by 24. And it's going to be the centerpiece in this quilt that we're making. And what we will likely do is make a center block, 24 by 24, and then we will build out from that with some other of the blocks in this. We just need to decide what size and which shapes work the best. So a little rundown on fabric. I am using, and it's still on the bolt here, So Classic. Usually I purchase this from Joann's, and it is 100% cotton. It is a really nice true white. It doesn't usually come off as a little yellowy. And it doesn't have that kind of bluish neon look to it. It is really just right on white. So we're using that, and I think when I purchased this, I purchased 5-6 yards and just had them leave it on the bolt. So we're going to use that. A little trick for you, and or tip I should say, is when you're buying fabric in bulk like this and you're using it to work on a project, I stick a little note on the edge of the fabric so I know I'm using it for a project. Sometimes we work on these things and it takes weeks or months, sometimes even years, to finish it, and you don't want to use this on another project and then come up short. So that's my trick. I have 2 projects going on right now where I've got bulk white fabric, and I've done the same thing on both of those. One of them I put the fabric into the project box, and so it's kind of safe, but I did put a note on it as well. And then this one's too big to go in the project box, so it will just stay loose. And let me grab my box so that as we talk about these things, I can just put it away. And see, I've put a little piece of chalkboard tape on here, so I can use a chalk marker to write on it what's in that box. And it allows me to kind of keep things a little neat in the studio, and I'm not tripping over everything or getting everything mixed together. So for this project, we've got a solid navy, we've got the white, we've got a navy dot, so it's a navy fabric, almost the same color. It's a little different, but it's almost, with a white small dot. We've got an aqua fabric, a green fabric, and then this kind of gray-white background, little swoosh in the fabric with a dot that is very, very close to the colors of the aqua and the green. So it's kind of a good joining piece to bring it all together. So we can set those aside there, out of the way, and we have a little bit more room. Now, that's one of my tips too, is to try to keep a project in a box if you're working on multiple projects. Okay, so I sat down yesterday and I said I'm going to get ready for today. I'm going to go ahead and cut all of my pieces, get them numbered, get them arranged and organized, read through the project a bit, at least the first couple of steps, so I'm ready to go. So I started that. And if you'll notice, my book has all these little green Post-its in it with notes. And the first thing I did was I took the colors they suggested and put a Post-it here to indicate the fabrics that I'm using. Please excuse me. The only other step up from that I would recommend is to actually cut a little tiny swatch and tape it to this Post-it so you really could stay on top of it. I think if this had more than the 6 fabrics it does, I would go that route. Now, lest you think that things always go perfectly here, let me show you what I did yesterday. I got started cutting all this, and I should have thought about this before I put it away. And I kind of got ahead of myself in the directions and cut all these pieces out of the navy and realized that was the wrong fabric. They needed to be cut out of the white. So we're just going to put these back in this box for now. And I hope that we're going to be able to use those in the blocks that surround this big box. And I think we will. They're pretty standard sizes, so that should work out pretty well. Okay, so we've got pieces A through M, I think. So make sure we got every letter. G, H, J, K, L, M. All right. They're all cut. We've got the right number of pieces. I use a little scrap piece of fabric and write the designation for that cut, and she's doing it by letters here on a little fabric scrap with a Sharpie marker. Just make sure that that is nice and dry before you put it here, and don't let it get wet. And you shouldn't have a problem with that. Then there's only one of these pieces. No, there's 2 of these pieces. There was L. Where is L? L. L was a 5.5 by 5.5 block, just one, that was then cut in quarters. Whoops, I'm having a little trouble getting my shapes together here. It was a block that was cut in quarters to make 4 triangles. And they use a little symbol here in the instructions to tell you that's what you need to do. And then I've just got the little clips here holding them together. And the same thing with your block M, which is the only piece in this whole block out of the aqua fabric. So what I do hope to do is when we put this together in the bigger design, we can use more of the aquas and the greens and then this multicolor polka dot to bring all the colors together. Okay, that's good. And when I was cutting things, I put another Post-it here so that as I cut, I could put a little check mark. And I also put the colors of the fabric next to it once I discovered that I had cut the wrong ones. All right, so we've got that finished. I'm going to move that over. And let me tell you this. If you are following this project in the book, which sounds like fun to me, right? You can get the book off of Amazon, or you could when I got it a couple of weeks ago, if you are sewing this at home. The materials, which is this list here underneath the block, is enough materials to make 2 blocks. The cutting that they give you is enough to make 1 block. So we've cut all this. This is one big 24 by 24 inch block. So we're going to start on the very first column of instructions, and I'm just going to run through a couple of really quick things. I'm not going to spend all day today sewing because I wanted to introduce this project to you and maybe show you how we're getting started with it. And then beyond that, we'll come back next week and I'll have some of these rudimentary pieces together into subunits so we can begin to see how it's coming together. But I don't think that either you or I benefit from you watching me sew on the machine a lot. But one of the very first things that it asks us to do is to take one of our A blocks and one of our B blocks. Let me grab one. We draw a line through the white fabric, or whatever color you're using that's the lighter color. And I'm using some new pens today. These are the, what are they? Magic pens. I'm reviewing them, so I'm using them today to see how I like them. I have two different sizes or styles. I have a pink one and a blue one. The pink one is extra, I'm looking at the box down here, extra long pens. They are 2 1/4 inches. And the blue ones are quilting pens. Now, the pink one says it's regular, and the blue one says it's fine. And I will tell you that the fine does go through the fabric much smoother than the regular ones. So you've drawn that line, and then we're going to sew it 1/4 inch away from that line on both sides. And I'm going to have to take just a minute. One thing I didn't do was set this up. And my machine is a little quirky because it doesn't really have a marking or a metal piece. I didn't even pin these straight. I think that's too busy talking and not busy enough with what we're doing. Yeah. The blue one's definitely going better than the pink ones, that's for sure. And it could be the fabric, because this blue, I think this blue is a coconut. I'll have to go back and look. And it's really much heavier and much denser, I think. I'm not sure if that's the right word. Okay, we're going to start this now. And I think this is the one fault that I have with my machine, is it doesn't have a good way to sew 1/4 inch that's not on the edge of the fabric. If it's on the edge of the fabric, I can use a special foot, or I can use a seam guide. We'll just have to check it and make sure I'm on track. Okay, let's do a little fact checking, seam checking rather. We are just shy of 1/4 inch, so we're going to call it good for right now. Still testing these out. Okay, we've sewn the seam on either side. And we want to make sure not to stretch that, because that's the bias here. And then we're just going to use our rotary cutter to cut right down the middle. You wouldn't have to use a ruler to do that, but you can. And now we have a half square triangle. Easy. We have to do 32 of those. And no, we have to, yeah, we have 16 pairs, so we'll make 32 of these. And these will be used in the the corner blocks, the corner subsets of this block. And then once we get that on, then it's going to tell us, of course, we will want to trim it. We'll press it and trim it. And then we're going to add block C to one side, and it's actually this side. So we'll add that there. So I'm going to go ahead and do one of those. You know, it's always my philosophy that you should do some test. If you're doing a quilt with a lot of the same blocks, that you should do a test to see how well it goes together. So it shows you how to put it, and then it shows you you're going to put your blocks or piece C right on top of that. Oops. When you know it, it doesn't want to catch. So I had some little scraps I put over here. Little pieces that got cut off as we were. Okay, and here we go. Much better. If you're ever wondering why people chain stitch and they always have something ready to go in, it's because you don't have that problem with it going down in the fabric. Okay, we're going to take this one step further because on the other end it says to put one of the D blocks. Oops, kind of pulled that a little bit. So we're going to take this out and we're going to, I have these scissors right here. Do the best we can there. Let me get some scissors. Okay, so we're moving right along. This may be tediously slow for you at home, but I don't want to have to cut more pieces. And I'm using this ruler a little bit to press that seam down in a way that doesn't really stretch it too much. Okay, so we've got these two together. I'm looking at the picture and it says now to turn them like, looking at this. That block doesn't match this block. Okay, I'm back and I think I figured out what's going on here. She has designed these and is instructing you to create pieces that will go together into subunits that go together to make the block. And the way that this corner box is constructed on this particular block is that all four are exactly the same, but they are positioned so that they turn in all four directions. That's hard to say. So when you look at this versus this, they're not the same. When you look at this versus this, they're not the same. But if you think about them going around like this, they are the same. And because of that, depending on where you're placing this piece, and this is one of several pieces that will go together, it will be right. So it looks a little odd. It doesn't exactly match the picture, but as you twist it around, those little half square triangles rotate. And even within the block, some of them face this way and some of them face this way. So what we're going to do, what I'm going to do, is I'm going to move forward, not with making all of them. Well, I will make all of the half square triangles because they're all the same and they can be turned any way you want them to. But I'm going to do that, but I'm only going to make one of the corner squares to make sure it comes together properly. And then if it looks right, then I'm going to make 3 of those and come back to you next week with the bits and pieces and show you how they come together. And then we'll have all 4. That's very confusing, but this is real-time stuff, so that's why sometimes it gets the best of all of us. And you have to kind of think about when somebody has written instructions for you, they have written it in a way that makes perfect sense to them. And by following these instructions, you can get there. But sometimes it's just the methodology that might seem wrong or different or just odd sometimes. And you have to kind of think through it. And for me, thinking through it also means working through it. So that's what I'm doing. Okay, let me do this one real quick. And then we will kind of wrap up for the day. I think I'm going to have to try out some different feet on my machine because that one just isn't getting it. And these pins, I like the way they feel. They're much easier to deal with than the little round balls, but they're kind of big. Not necessarily in the length, but the diameter of them. Okay, so here we go. Here is a 3 square unit, and then we're going to quickly, we're going to kind of square that up a little bit before we move on for the day, because I want this block to be really nice and accurate. And it does look like it's accurate as far as the seams and so forth. I'm going to trim up that half square triangle, and we're going to cut off the little tail here. And then once that's pressed, we're going to have a really nice little unit. Now, like I said, when I look at it here versus the illustration for instruction number 3, that center block looks like it's twisted the wrong way. But I can see where it would go right here in the illustration for the whole block. So I hope that makes sense. All right, we're moving on from there. We're going to make all these half square triangles. We've got instructions to make another unit that is just 3 of these. That'll come together really easy. And then onto those 3, you add a green square. All that seems to be working pretty well. Those are going to be the units you put together with E to make that corner block. So I think it's really a lot of repetitive sewing at this point, and that's what I'm going to be working on this week, so that next week you can begin to see it take shape. The good thing about this particular block is there's a lot of pieces, but it looks like they're all similar steps. Now next week we're going to be talking about something that looks to me a lot like a flying geese. And if you've watched any of my videos, that is probably the least favorite thing that I've run across in quilting and piecing is flying geese. I don't like them. They always give me trouble. But for this one, we are going to need a few. And it's going to be with the F piece and the G pieces. So we'll do that. We need to make 8 of them according to the instructions. So we'll just take it slow. We've got a nice white fabric so we can make nice marks on it to follow with our stitching. I need to figure out what's going on with this foot and make that work a little better. We're off. This is the first video for this project, the Barnstar Sampler, and we are working on block number 1 called Diamond Star. And again, it is 24 inches by 24 inches. It's going to be about this size total. This is right at 25. So it's a big block, and we're going to just start and see what happens. I think it's going to be beautiful once it's done, but because it is so many little seams and pieces, we're going to take it slow and make sure we get our seams and our cutting accurate. That's going to do it for today. I'm so glad that you joined us. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up. Be sure to subscribe and share the channel with your quilty friends. I hope that we have something here for everybody. And this week, we have released a video just a couple of days ago on our March project for our quilt we're making for 2024, a little whimsical novelty quilt with some little symbols for each month. So if you missed that, go back and check it out. We're going to be doing one of those every month. And we've got some plans for next week as well. So be sure to join us. We'll see you next time at the Shamrock Quilt Studio. Bye.